Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Steele, and I'm your student's AP Calculus AB teacher during the 2019-2020 school year. If you're watching this video, it's probably because my door is still locked, as I am actually in Clarksburg right now, finishing up the rehearsal dinner for my best friend since first grade, who's getting married on Saturday. I think I should be back, but just in case, I wanted to record this video so you'd get the same presentation that you would if I were back, or when I get back. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at what your student's going to be working through this year in my calculus class. So first of all, who am I? This is my 12th year at Franklin High School. I've taught the entire math sequence, Algebra 1 through AP Calculus BC. Haven't taught the Stats 1, and I've been teaching calculus since the Math 1, 2, and 3 started, so I've been focused more on the upper maths. This year I'm teaching AP Calculus AB, the follow-up course AP Calculus BC, and our Calculus Lab Calc Prep, which is done in terms 2 and 4 to help students prepare for the AP exam and bridge between the terms. I graduated from Laguna Creek High School, so I've been local, born in Arkansas, but have lived here most of my life. I have a bachelor's degree from UC Davis with a major in mathematics and a minor in English. Actually, I have dual credentials, so I could teach both, but focus on math for the most part. I coach our mathletes team, which completed our 6th straight district championship last year. I also coordinate our Challenge Day and Diamond Day programs. I actually facilitated that for the first time last year. I run Franklin Voice, and the last 2 years I've run the Mesa program as well. I have a YouTube channel, which we'll talk about in a little bit, so I won't spend a whole lot of time there. As your students will hopefully tell you, I try desperately hard to be funny. Hopefully they'll just say I'm funny. That would be better and preferable, but I try really hard to make the class and math entertaining as much as possible, and I actually really do like this job. So it's been one of the greatest decisions of my life to pursue this instead of other courses. So as far as the textbook, your students took it home, hopefully, and that was probably it. We don't work out of the textbook. I've written all the problem sets myself, so that way they're completely up to date. I want to keep that textbook as a complete extra resource for them, so anything they want to work out of from there is great. It's a great additional resource if they're looking for more problems, but I try to overwhelm them with lots of problems that they can use to prepare for things too. So hopefully that textbook is just kind of a last resort, but it's great to have. It's a very quality textbook. Larson does a nice job. So as far as materials, haven't seen any issues, but basically a student should have pencils or pens, something to write with in class, a notebook where they can keep all their notes. It's a nice study tool, even though I give them the electronic copies of the notes after the class finishes each day. It's a great reference for homework or the AP exam, as well as when they go off to college if they're going to continue into engineering or physics or some of those fields. Having that notebook will be really helpful. It's nice to have tape or glue, although I have lots of golden animals on my desk that they can use to tear tape from. And then a graphing calculator. We prefer the TI-84 Plus CE. I think I have one right here. These guys are really nice. I've seen them for as low as like $110, $120 when they're on sale, or up to $150, but they have an updated processor. They do a great job. Obviously, I have a few copies, or a few of those calculators I can share in class during quizzes and stuff if people don't have them, and we loan them out if they're available, but again, it's just a matter of students talking to me about them. So as far as assessments, we have 3 major types of assessments in the course, not counting like the final exam, which is pretty standard. We have the skills or standards quizzes, which are more or less weekly, and they cover the fundamental ideas from the past courses as well as the current term of calculus. So they start with a small value, so the first one that we just took last week on Friday was worth 7 points, and then they grow in value each week as the students gain more comfort with the material or add actual new skills to it, such as on this next one they should be able to do all 14 questions. They're also capped at 12 points, so even though there are 14 questions, they could actually get some extra credit if they want to. The unit assessments are the next thing. We actually had our first one on Tuesday, which from Thursday's perspective will be 2 days ago. From my perspective will be 1 day from now. So basically those cover the major content from one of the big units that we have. Each quarter we have 3 major unit assessments, full unit assessments, and a mini assessment that covers a smaller unit of curriculum. They're each worth somewhere between 90 and 120 points depending on the scope and how intense the material is. So those usually happen about once every 2.5 weeks. The first unit's a little more condensed because it's mostly review and extension from what they did in pre-cal. Every other unit is almost a complete and full 2-week unit. Finally, the last thing we do, which is somewhat unique between me and Ms. Formaker and everyone else, we use what's called the warm-up quiz process. So when class begins, we don't go over homework. There's lots of ways they can do that. We'll talk about that later. What we do is we give a low-leverage assessment, meaning that it's not going to permanently hurt their grade. It doesn't go into the big test category. It's worth 80%. It's just something that gives them an opportunity to practice the skills on the assignments that have been recent and for us to see how they're doing. So I collect data on those using Google Forms, and I can make the decisions about what kinds of problems to bring up or what kinds of things to include on the test or just go over again when we go through. Students also have the opportunity to get full credit on all of those. So like on the one that we took for the first unit, I think it was 14 points. If a student got 8 out of 14, they could correct it, turn in those corrections on the day of the test, and get those full points back too. Because it's all about learning when we're using those warm-up quizzes. Just a better use of time, supported by research as well as student feedback as well. So 3 major types, and then again I mentioned the final exam, but there's nothing new about the final exam. So as far as the average day in class, like that picture's a while ago, look how wide open the walls are on the side. But basically we start off with some sort of warm-up, something to get them back into the mood. Usually that begins with just kind of a warm-up problem of some kind. I put up something that's relevant or something that's been kind of challenging. The first unit, I basically threw one up there that was a difficult problem for them on the warm-up quiz and had them do another one just to make sure they were comfortable. They also might do a literal warm-up quiz. I think we usually do 2 or 3 per unit depending on time. Our schedule at Franklin is kind of crazy. There's a lot of stuff going on. Sometimes it's hard to squeeze in as much as we want to. After that, we do some sort of lecture. The lesson, basically, I do it using the Vis tablet program, or the Windows Journal program using my Vis tablet. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And then we work our way through. And it says one way or another, because even if there's a sub there, then I pre-record my lecture in the exact same way we would in class. And then that plays for the students. That way they're completely caught up, whether I'm there or not. After that, then throughout the lesson, there's some practice. There's always time to answer questions, or ask questions. Like there's never a time where I go, there are no questions allowed for this topic. That would not be a useful use of me or their time. So basically, like the first unit's really tight though. So if students were like, there wasn't much time, yeah, it's because we had the Pride schedule. It's just a really, really tough, tight schedule. But as we move forward and get into new topics like differentiation and integration, we'll have much more time built in so that students can practice throughout the lessons and actually ask us questions. As far as resources, I think this is the richest thing that I can offer you about the class, is basically first, of course, Synergy is available. Synergy has its detractions, but the best thing about Synergy from your perspective is that you get to see the progress of your student as it goes up. You can contact me really fast. There's no knowing an email address. You can just click on my name and go from there. I post the assignments daily, as long as I remember. Sometimes I do get lost in other things that I'm working on. Update the grades really frequently, especially like every couple days you should see the new assignments and warm-up quiz and stuff go in. So keep in mind, if you're looking for what your students turned in and doing, that's a good place to go. Second, the first big thing on here is the Google Drive. So the Google Drive is where I store all the resources from the course. Basically, I post our notes as soon as class ends every single day, and those notes look like what you're seeing over on the right side here. I have fully written problem set solutions available for them. I post practice standard quizzes, and there are reviews and review solutions. So just to kind of give you a quick little preview of what that looks like, here it is, the actual drive that they have. In the archive notes folder, if you go to the period, like period 1, you can look and actually see the notes that we did on Friday last week. They're exactly the notes that we took in class. That way too, students don't have to necessarily copy down every single word that I say, because they know it'll be there. They can focus, they can ask questions, they can really think about the material a little bit more than just blindly copying everything, which I'll admit I had to do in college because I wasn't sure what was going to be important and no one was posting anything. But I'd like to encourage this a little bit more. So there's where the notes are, and again, I keep them all up there as an archive, as well as all the old pre-cal notes in case they need those. And I mentioned some of the other reviews that are available, or the problem set solutions. So here are the problem set solutions from the first unit. I've worked every single problem in gory detail. They can check those out if they want. And then there's also the unit review materials. So basically they can go look at, say, the practice things that we've been working on in class, or the written solutions to it. So in addition to those, new this year, were a couple other new things that I came up with and worked with. The first of them are called video solutions. Basically, every problem set from this term over the summer, I rewrote from scratch to make sure that it was accurate, to asking great questions and preparing them better for the levels of questioning on the AP exam, as well as the levels I want to put on my exams as well. It explains in each of these video solutions, basically for chosen problems, which is usually about 70 to 80% of the questions on the assignment, I go through the full problem, providing context, explaining concepts and the techniques that are then, and I show all the work and provide every little bit of information I can. So to give you kind of an example of what that looks like, they can access those through the problem sets, links to video solutions folder. So say they were working on that last assignment we turned in. In here, they just find the problem that they're having trouble with. Maybe they're having trouble with question number 14. They click on 14. It takes them to the YouTube channel.
Okay, next, that brings us to question 14.
Moment in the video
14
where I'm
is actually drawn out of
14.
the single most
so basically, if the
question,
sound were on,
and I believe it was
voice,
the AP
if the sound was on, they could actually listen to
it was on, I believe,
video.
the 2008 test or something like that. It was on the 2008 test. It was a multiple choice question, 5 answer choices.
So basically, that's available there too. So far, the students have said there were they've had positive feedback for the most part. But again, hopefully they don't have to think about that, but it's nice that they have it just in case. So in addition, there are video lectures available. This is most relevant this year because unfortunately on September 10th, I have to be out for a few weeks because I'm having spinal surgery to try to correct a back issue that's been going on for 2 years, but basically really bad since April 8th. So basically I'm really hopeful it's going to work out. But because of that, although my old calculus teacher has agreed to be my guest teacher and my sub for that time, I pre-recorded the lectures that I would give if I were in class. And those are already posted on YouTube, so I mean, hey, if you want to learn a little bit of calculus, you'd be welcome to do it. But basically those lectures are online, so it'll be just like I was at school. Basically, they can go through, watch the full lecture, and then Mr. Friedrich, who will be covering for me, can pause it at appropriate times. They can talk about it with themselves, and of course, they can also go home and look at it afterwards. So it's literally just like I was there, except I'm teaching remotely, kind of. So just know that, again, that would not be my choice. I wish that I had had my back injury fixed a long time ago, but for the moment, I feel like this was the best way to fix it, was to arrange a calculus teacher to cover for me, as well as provide every possible resource that I could. So again, those will be available, and after the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I should be available as well to contact electronically. Just have to wait for enough recovery to be able to do that. So there's some great resources that are available. Hopefully your students have already used them if they're feeling the need to it. Hopefully at some point, even if they haven't, they'll find them useful too. Finally, if your student still needs extra help beyond all that stuff, I think those resources are probably the best place to go. But if there's time in class, obviously they can ask. I have 5th period lunch. They're welcome to come in and ask then. They can make appointments, but I'm holding it to no appointments before 7:30 this year. That's usually my best time to work at class and kind of prepare the notes and rehearse for the lectures that I'm doing. So that's kind of my holding thing in the morning. I also have a ton of stuff after school, so usually it's kind of like that late morning, early afternoon would be the best spots. There are other resources they can use: textbook, YouTube, Khan Academy. They can get a math lab class. Mr. Shanning's been really helpful with his class in there, kind of getting them ready for the standard quiz, so there's lots of options there. We also have Calc Prep. That's not really an extra help thing. That's just kind of a support and making sure that students have an opportunity to be ready for the actual AP exam. We offer that in terms 2 and 4, and we still have some room, so if that's something your student schedule has room for, it might be a good option for them. And then in term 4, Ms. Formmaker and I host AP practice tests where we do a full released exam, well, an unreleased secure exam. And then she and I grade it with former students or college math students there helping us grade through it. And then we provide them their actual AP score word at their test. In the last few years, especially, students have said that's been really helpful. Some years we've done as many as 3. I think most times we're able to get 2 in, especially with an earlier test date this year. So just know that there's something out there for them. There's things that we can provide. There's also stuff they can find online. Finally, more than anything else, just please encourage your students to ask any questions. Obviously, you can't exactly ask me questions right now because if you're watching this, I'm not there. But I'm really appreciative of all the stuff that I've seen from your students so far. I've had 3 great classes so far. Performance has been great, and I'm looking forward to a great year and hopefully a fast recovery from surgery so that I can get back and keep working with your students. Although between you and me, I have some fun surprises planned for them nevertheless. So there will be some good stuff that they'll get to enjoy mathematically while I'm not there and while Mr. Friedrich's covering for me. So in the meantime, thank you for coming. Thank you for attending. Again, I apologize for not being here, but again, once in a lifetime opportunity to be best man for my best friend since 1st grade. Met at Folks Ranch Elementary School, in fact. So thank you for your patience. Enjoy the rest of back to school night and have a great night.